Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. Welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. And thank you for joining us at the final session of the series on climate crisis, men, and climate justice issue. And we really appreciate you continuously joining us in this conversation and contributing with your expertise, knowledge, and today, in the last session, the focus will be on summarizing the highlights so far in this series and the ways forward for integrating climate justice issue within the MenEngage Alliance and the discussion around a working group we can form. So this is the group that we will be speaking today. So we have Katrien, who you have been hearing since throughout as well. So Katrien is independent general consultant and also the steering committee member of MenEngage Europe. She is from Belgium. And we also have Sohan Rahman, who is the CEO and co-founder of Bangladesh Model Youth Parliament, and also who is the coordinator of YouthNet for Climate Justice in Bangladesh, and also the coordinator for Fridays for Future in Bangladesh. We have Vidar Falk, who is the international project manager at MAN in Sweden, and he is a very well-known person when it comes to looking at the intersections of masculinities and climate within MenEngage Alliance, and also on the issues of men care, unpaid care work, and fatherhood. And then we also had Jennifer Rodriguez Bruno. We call Jenny in short. She is the advocacy manager at the Global Secretariat at the MenEngage Alliance. And myself, Laxman Belbase, I'm also with Jenny at the Global Secretariat as one of the two co-directors. And I'll be your host for the session today. If you are active on social media or are following us in the social media or want to connect this conversation with the broader conversation that is happening in the Ubuntu Symposium, please use this hashtag in social media, Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, wherever you are, use the hashtag Ubuntu Symposium or hashtag Ubuntu Symposio Ubuntu, which is in Spanish. And also, if you would like to follow us on there, just follow this one or MenEngage in the social media. So with this, as I said, this is part of the series that we have been organizing on the issue of climate justice and in interconnection and nexus with masculinities on the work we are doing and how we can look into the root causes that is creating the climate crisis at the moment and what has that to do with men and masculinity. So that's been the series. So I'll now hand it over to Katrien for the summarizing of the conversation so far, and then also taking us through some of the things that that has come out so far that is relevant for MenEngage and this group. So Katrien, over to you.
Thank you very much, Laxman, for the introduction, and welcome everybody from all corners of the globe for joining us here. First slide, please, Laxman. So I had the wonderful task of trying to summarize everything that has been said in this series. So as you know, this is the 7th seminar and the last one, and it has been incredibly rich, everything that has been shared throughout the previous seminars. So I have the task for MenEngage to try to summarize all of this into a knowledge paper. The knowledge paper will also be a nice starting place for the working group that we would like to set up around the topic. And I want to go through and give a very small summary of everything that has been said, or let's say some main key points that have been said during the previous 6 climate seminars. And I'm going to do this with the entry point of the 5 concepts that were chosen by the Ubuntu Symposium as the main concepts to work around. And you see them here on the slide. It's feminisms, it's intersectionality, accountability, transformation, and power with. So I went through all of the seminars again, and looked at everything that has been said and tried to sort of attach it to one of these concepts. And then an underlying thing is, of course, the topic of system change, because this has been common throughout all of the seminars, that we cannot work on climate change without also working on system change, just as much as we can't work around gender equality without wanting a system change as well. Next slide, please. So this slide has been shown in a couple of those seminars. It's been sort of a red thread throughout. And as you can see here, it shows three ways in which people can relate to nature. The one in black on the left side, it's the typical patriarchal order where man is at the top of a pyramid. There is a hierarchy. Man is dominant. It's the patriarchal norms of man at the top, man who is dominant. And you do have a relationship with nature in such a setting, but it will be more like a hunter or a warrior, that kind of thing. Typically, also for that vision is elite man or island man, you know, the very few and happy rich in the world who buy islands because they're so rich, or build rockets to shoot out in space, thinking that that will lift them above nature, above humanity, and detach it from all the troubles that go with it. Also in this group, you find the climate deniers, doubters, delayers. Then a second vision is, we call it the eco-modern masculinity. And it's more a vision of men who started to realize that there is a real problem with nature going on and it needs to be fixed. But precisely there is the problem in their approach, the term fix, that they think, you know, it can be a quick fix. We don't have to rethink the system. We can just find technological solutions for the problems that present itself in nature. Now, what eventually we would like to go to is get rid of all these hegemonic masculinities that define man as having to be dominant in order to be good. And we want to create a system, and that's the pictogram on the right side. We call it ecological masculinities, or better, even ecological humanity, because we want to get rid of that binary male-female thing eventually, and that we get to a system of ecological humanity where we realize that we are part of nature, not above, not at the side, not in a way to dominate, but that we are part and parcel of everything else in nature, both human and non-human. And that's also very important. And that we need to restore this relationship in a caring way instead of a dominating way. So this has been a dominant theme throughout all of the series. Next slide, please. Then if we focus in on these 5 topics, the feminism one, well, definitely diverse feminisms has existed long before the climate crisis and before the climate movement. And as such, there is so much to learn. We've had some excellent speakers speaking during our seminars who showed what ecofeminists have done, or women's organizations that look at the climate movement from a feminist perspective. So there's a whole richness, and it's really a richness that we can learn from and that we can use as a MenEngage Alliance. Also, too often when we talk about gender and climate, people only think of women and girls as victims, or maybe the heroes, whatever, but man and man's role remain clearly invisible. And this is something where the MenEngage Alliance can really be of an added value. Also, what is very important at the same time is that we take an intersectional approach, which means, first of all, that we pass the microphone to the MAPA. And the MAPA is the most affected people and areas in the world. We've got Sohan nodding his head. Yes, Sohan, obviously, he's been shouting out for this, and rightfully so, that we definitely have to do this. But I also have the quote on the right side coming from Martin Hultman and Paul Poulet. Paul Poulet, I saw he's part of the seminar today, so welcome, Paul. That says the concept of ecological masculinities is here understood as a rational, equitable form of masculinities. See the plural, please. Based on a deep level of care for self, others, non-human beings, and the living earth. And so intersectionality in a climate justice framework should move beyond the human even, and go also to the non-human, because we've got a lot of healing and restoration to do there as well. Next slide, please. Then we move on to the next basic concepts in the Ubuntu Symposium, the one of accountability, which obviously has a very significant meaning when we talk about climate justice. It's holding men accountable as polluters, as being cause of many of the problems, environmental problems that we face. And then we think, of course, about the island man, the elite man, the very rich ones who own the fossil fuel industries, etc., etc. But of course, all of us are part and parcel of the problem. And also on an individual level, all of us are accountable. Also, one of the topics that has come up very often during the seminars is the notion that privilege brings responsibility, that people should really use their privilege in a positive way to heal the earth and to change our relationship with nature. A nice quote here that I want to remember is coming from Vidar, is caring about something means you can see it and that you're willing to pay attention to it, giving care and receiving care. And this is so important when we talk about accountability. Then the concept of power width also came up quite often in the seminars, and it was about daring to be vulnerable and acknowledging that we are vulnerable, both of them entangled together, which is especially difficult often for men who are stuck in the hegemonic masculinities. How to break away from those and how to come to a vulnerability that is both carried by a responsibility and by the ability to connect in a caring way. Also, of course, part of that power with is standing alongside female climate activists and not allowing any further harassment. We've had some testimonies about horrible harassment that happened to female climate activists, and we should stand shoulder to shoulder with them and see how they can be protected. And then acting global was often coming up, and global is actually an abbreviation of the word global via the local. So having both levels, we have to act local because it's on a planetary scale that the environmental problems like biodiversity loss, CO2 emissions, pollution, it presents itself on a global scale. So there is a huge global perspective, but we have to act locally, us as individuals, while we are changing the structures. And like that, next slide, please, Laxman. We come to the last concept, which is a concept of transformation, and that is nothing else than the system change, the call for the system change, that we have to deconstruct the underlying patriarchal stereotypes because they hold in place these horrible eco-destructive masculinities that we need to deconstruct. And I want to end my summary of the seminars with a quote by Marcelo Salazar, one of the participants, who said, "We need to be radical dreamers and radical listeners. We need to dare to move into uncomfortable places to make things move in the right direction. Let's change our positions." Next slide, please. Laxman, thank you. So I'm writing a paper that sort of summarizes all of these points and has some more of the beautiful quotes that we harvested in the seminars. But part of that paper will also be to make recommendations in all of these fields. And I want to do this jointly now. So I started to list the recommendations that I found coming out of the seminars, but I want to double check them today with you. And we want to make it participatory. So I'm going to divide this room, or I will ask the technical support to do that for me, to divide the room into 5 breakout rooms. And please check the number of the room that you are going into, because each room will start to look at recommendations from another chapter. And for the recommendations, I divided the recommendations in the 5 keywords of feminisms, intersectionality, accountability, power, width, and transformation. Each breakout room has 10 minutes to look at it. And to avoid that everybody starts in the first section and never gets to the rest, I want each subgroup to start in another section, so that at least all of the sections are looked at by at least one of the breakout rooms. Now, how we're going to do this is that we're going to share now in the chat, and I would like to ask Laxman to do that, a link to a Google document. So thank you for taking us out. And so we're going to share a Google document with you. And if you click on that link, then you get to a Google document that has all of the recommendations for each of the sections. And then you can actually just write comments in that document itself, so that afterwards I have that document available to me to finalize. So you see, Laxman has shared now the link to the document in the chat. And maybe Laxman, if you could share the slides again so that people can see the numbering of the working groups again, or otherwise I will also put them in the chats for everyone to see as well, so that they can verify in which subgroup they are. Okay, so the technical support, Tamizan, can you divide us in 5 breakout rooms, please? Okay, so then we'll just wait for tech support to divide us in the proper group according to the languages. And then you find in the chat what your breakout room needs to do, or you can see it on the slide. And then remember, when you click on join your breakout room, that you check the number so that you know what the topic is to check.
Саша и Настя. Настя, похоже, говорить не может. Настя, можешь писать. Вам документ виден? Нет, вы его видели? Саш, ты можешь?
Да, здравствуйте, меня слышно?
Да, тебя слышно, ага.
Меня просто видно меня не будет, к сожалению, а слышно. Да, а я вот присоединился не сразу. Мне вот экомодерные решения, честно говоря, не очень понятны. Ну, я так...
Я поняла. Здесь... Ой, я потеряла, где этот сам документ-то у меня. Сейчас тебе скажу. Так, смотри, значит, что у нас тут идет? Я думаю, что здесь... Дело в том, что сейчас идет очень много разных движений, которые пытаются отвлечь от основной проблемы. Знаешь, такие подмены фактически. И я думаю, что здесь пытаются вот остановить именно вот как false solutions, да, вот это вот, и другие такие вещи. То есть смысл этого, вот этой части документа состоит в том, что это должно быть справедливо, это должно быть не на глобальном, не на макроэкономическом только уровне, да, а global to local, то есть на всех уровнях. Включать именно интересы местных сообществ. И это должно быть очень, inclusive. И dismantling tax havens and financial flow. Ну да, ну и как бы убрать вот эту вот элитность, мужскую элитность на мировом уровне. Это, конечно, так быстро не знаю, справимся мы или нет. Ну, в общем, вот основная идея, да, что... Понимаешь, вот мне кажется, что они пытались сказать, это то, что обычно макроэкономический уровень, я не знаю, как ты сталкивался, но я сталкивалась с тем, что чаще всего он вообще не включает людей. Это, знаешь, системы между собой
Да, понимаю.
общаются, а людей нет. И вот попытка включить во все это, ну, как бы, чтобы было человеческое лицо. Вот мне кажется, что это основное это. Вот, Настя, ты если хочешь что-то напиши, я это озвучу. Если у тебя есть какая-то там...
Я могу быстренько сказать, а документ, он где посмотреть его? Я просто не видела.
Ты не видела? В чате есть ссылка на документ.
Если я вступила, сейчас я посмотрю, если я включилась позже, то там, наверное, меня нет в чате, сейчас я посмотрю.
В чате ты есть.
Нет, я есть. Все, нашла, сейчас посмотрю.
Нашла, да? И наша часть, вот эта трансформация, то есть последняя раздел. И нам нужны наши рекомендации, как бы, с точки зрения того, что делать с климатическими изменениями, да, с точки зрения трансформации. Вот мне кажется, здесь не хватает элемента именно самой трансформации, то есть установлены рамки. Саш, вот что ты думаешь? Мне кажется, здесь больше установлено...
Я пока читаю.
Читайте, да, я вам дам 3 минуты. Потому что я этот документ уже просто много раз читала. Ну, пока вы читаете, просто скажу мое ощущение, что здесь в основном установлены рамки, как бы, как это должно быть, да, то есть по каким правилам, грубо говоря, да, там global to local, inclusive, fair, но здесь вот сам элемент трансформации, то есть это должно быть awareness тоже, наверное, здесь. Как бы, чтобы накопить такую критическую массу людей-то.
То есть не обозначено само направление движения этой трансформации, я так понял?
Ну вот, да, смотри, вот у них задача demand system change, да, keeping
Да-да-да, вижу.
focus on system change. А здесь нет самого вот этого именно, да,
А
движения.
что делать-то будем? Правда, согласен абсолютно. Потому что очень много действительно говорится, как именно там, например, там привлекать науку,
Да.
опираться на научные знания. Например, да, хорошо, а ради чего, какую науку? Вот, это тоже такая...
Вот давай
действительно,
ты
да.
от нас озвучишь это дело, хочешь?
Вообще я готов озвучивать, но немножко вот не сейчас, потому что я только к этому подключился.
Ну
Чё-то
ладно,
скажу
хорошо.
еще не то. Не,
Ладно,
я в принципе могу, если надо, могу, но лучше первый раз вот.
Хорошо, я скажу тогда, да.
Мгм.
Ну, тогда вот наши, да, то есть мы, нам не хватает, я бы, наверное, здесь вот слово transformation и комментарий написать, что we think that transformation itself is missing. Слушайте, у меня еще и пришли, блин. Поговорите немножко. Сейчас я... Что еще нам не хватает? Блин. Что ж такое у меня?
Есть время пока прочитать. Нормально. Да я читаю по-английски. Я говорю по-английски плохо. Вот, а читаю я нормально. Вот, так. Ну вот у меня здесь, ну это Марина подойдет, наверное, Петровна. Я бы еще здесь добавил про государство, потому что тут много говорится про, так сказать, про то, что не допускать, значит, где-то у меня это убежало. Не допускать там этих ложных решений, изменений и так далее. Вот. Финансировать небольших устойчивых проектов на базе местных сообществ. Я бы здесь еще добавил какой-то блок, может быть, небольшой, посвященный тому, чтобы...
Очень ценно. А ты можешь вот в документе написать, как я, комментарий? Прям в самом документе.
Вот. А можно тогда воспользоваться помощью переводчика?
Да, скажи Ире, она тогда это...
Да, спасибо вам большое, очень, очень радует ваше присутствие. Давайте так сформулируем. Сейчас я закончу просто мысль про то, что здесь говорится о там недопустимости, ну, о финансировании небольших проектов, вот, и там разные недопустимости там налоговых гаваней, вот это вот элитные промышленники, как там они формулируются. Я бы здесь еще добавил, что недопустимость, скажем так, монополизации государствами этой деятельности и подменой вот этих вот низовых grassroots инициатив на некие такие псевдообщественные активности государства, чем в России страдают.
I think we were all pulled back to the main room suddenly.
Вот это такое предложение.
Sorry to
Too
interrupt, Alexander. I see the excitement.
Ну, добавить вот, наверное, вот туда, где... Ой, у меня... Да, у меня тоже телефон. Извините, сейчас одну секунду должен ответить. Я на работе нахожусь. Сейчас.
We all need to select language again. Go to the globe and select your language.
Yeah. So Welcome back. So yeah, thank you for your inputs and comments in the document. And we will process your comments while you further work with Katrien on the document, and do incorporate some of your inputs that you have provided. And thank you, Katrien, for taking us through this. And I think quite great messages for us to keep in mind on moving forward on some of the intersections to look into when we talk about what we are supposed to add value to the broader gender and climate justice agenda. And within that, making sure the accountability becomes part and partial. But what I also liked about is also making clarity the interconnection of how masculinities or masculine norms becomes the root causes of the climate crisis we are looking at, and how that gets entangled with how the people in power positions, and especially that happens to be men, relate in relation to issue and the challenge we are facing when it comes to the climate and inequalities that's been created because of climate crisis at hand. And especially also looking at how can we stand and support as in solidarity and also as allies for a feminist women's rights movement who have long been doing this struggle, and how can we add value and also stand behind when they get the pushback from these power holders as MenEngage, because of the constituency that we are and with whom we work. How can we be more proactively standing behind and support, and especially the younger generation? And we are seeing what the younger generation have been able to do to highlight the importance of this agenda. And how can we stand also in as allies to the young leaders that are really coming up from across the world. It's not only so young leaders. It's amazing the way the leadership has been propped up from every corners around the world, which is something that we really should learn and support their leadership in challenging based on the overall framework that we have included in the symposium itself that Katrien presented, and also to look at how can these processes be very local in nature. Again, something to learn from the youth leaders and the movement that is coming up. And then a very clear call for systems transformation, because everything do not happen in silos, and everything happens as a part of the patriarchal system, which is the root cause, and how we can address all of these challenges and work from a systems transformation perspective when we engage as alliance. So yeah, radical dreamers, radical listeners, but also radical transformators, or whatever the word is. And I'm not a native English speaker, but the people who work and enact the transformation and push for transformation. So with that, I'd now like to invite Jenny and Sohan to present us on some of the immediate opportunities when it comes to politicizing this work in taking the work further. So over to Jenny and Sohan.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Sohan and I will be just going through a few key spaces that are actually going to be present through the rest of this year and into next year, noting actually how critical the agenda within advocacy spaces is going to be moving forward in the next few months all the way into next year. So we'll just be going through a few recaps. I'll focus on a few from key policy spaces, and Sohan on youth advocacy, no?
Yeah, Jenny, just a minute. I don't see Sohan in the list. Looks like he may have dropped off. Just so that you have that in mind. Yeah.
Okay, great. Wonderful. So, yeah, of course, as you know, we have many policy spaces to map and keep track of, ranging from Geneva all the way to New York. And so just from the Geneva front, as you know, with special procedures and many of the processes within the Human Rights Council, oftentimes the call for inputs are put forward, no, for key reports that are really good opportunities to highlight what is happening from a contextualized bottom-up perspective. Here, call for reports from the United Nations Environment Program, Office of the High Commissioner on Human Rights, and this for example, is specifically on support to environmental human rights defenders, their community and work. So just to give you an example of the sort of specialized opportunities for contributions to some of the reports based in Geneva, and this one just came out with a deadline in June. Then, of course, as many of you may know, we're advancing towards the Paris Generation Equality Forum. This has been a long process starting now last year and moving towards two big global conferences, one in Mexico that already took place, and of course the Paris Forum happening at the end of this month into July, which will be the culmination of these spaces, no, to establish a long-term gender justice agenda that will anchor global, regional, national commitments for the next 5 years towards the acceleration of gender justice. And as one of the key areas of work of this global agenda led by UN Women and multi-stakeholder partnerships is Feminist Action for Climate Justice Action Coalition is what it's called. There are 6 action coalitions. So of course, the centering of climate justice is one of them, is wonderful news, key advancement, no, and centering the agenda within the broader global gender justice agenda. And so quite some work in terms of advocacy and opportunities, no, linked to the Generation Equality Forum process, and even post-Paris, there are many opportunities, no, for follow-up advocacy as the Generation Equality Forum agenda goes into implementation through global commitments. So just to highlight that as one potential avenue for our collective advocacy, no? Then, of course, in November, we are moving into the 26th UN Climate Conference of the Parties, COP26, as it's called in short. And noting this space is much more restricted for civil society, no? In a sense, since it is a conference of parties, but there are many advocacy opportunities connected to this space. And I'm not sure if Sohan, are you back? Specifically, actually, with the pre-COP Youth Summit, which is a space where civil society and, of course, youth leaders in particular, no, are able to come together to provide key inputs towards the session. I'm not sure he's back, so maybe I'll continue ahead.
Sean is not back then.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. It's a shame Sohan's doing such amazing advocacy work. So hopefully he can come back up on to give us a quick recap, no, of these key spaces for youth and his rich involvement within them. So, but I say we move ahead on the slide, if that's okay. Yeah, and continuing on that track, and really important to note, as we were mentioning, there's a clear buildup, no, of potential for advocacy towards climate justice over the next year, shall we say, that particularly anchors to CSW 66. As many of you may know, the Commission on the Status of Women is the yearly UN conference specifically dedicated, no, to the advancement of women's rights within the UN system, and very particularly next year, the conference, which takes place every March, will be focused on achieving gender equality and the empowerment of all women and girls in the context of climate change. environmental and disaster risk reduction policies and programs. What's notable here to highlight is that's the first time it's been centered within the CSW agenda. So in many ways, the entire global feminist LGBTQIA plus movements, organizations, and activists gathering at this space, which typically is around 4,000 activists joining from around the world when travel was allowed. This last year, over 25,000 from around the world joining virtually, will be focused specifically on this agenda. So a wonderful opportunity for movement building and partnership building towards this collective agenda item coming up for March 2021. And then as well, Sohan was going to share on this, but a climate dialogue taking place with Bangladeshi young people and the permanent representatives of Bangladesh to the United Nations, in dialogue with the Swedish ambassador in Bangladesh. So many opportunities for youth to connect with policymakers, to share on their contextual experiences working in climate justice, as well as to inform policymakers' interventions through those direct dialogues, and then just highlighting some efforts in feminist advocacy. The Feminist Green New Deal Coalition, which is US-based, is quite an elaborate platform working to bring together stakeholders, feminist stakeholders, to advance collective advocacy. And it is US-based. But just one opportunity, to connect to learn from, and to stay articulated with. Wonderful. Maybe any questions, or if not, back to you, Laxman.
Yeah, thank you, Jenny. It's unfortunate that, now I see Sohan is in. And we'll give a couple of minutes for him also to share what he was planning to share. So Sohan, can you hear us? And if you can take
Yes.
2 minutes to share on the youth portion that you had in mind, what you wanted to share.
Yes, thank you, Laxman. So we know young people is very crucial, and currently the climate groups or climate dialogues or climate negotiation are involving young people as an active partner. So from this COP, Conference of the Parties, they are taking young people is another key stakeholder. And 2 days I met the COP26 President Alok Sharma MP in British High Commission Dhaka. So we share about our gender justice concern with him and advocate for more youth engagement in the climate negotiation. So in advocacy opportunities, we can focus COP26, which will be held in November in Glasgow, and one youth COI, Conference of the Youth, will be held there. And previous in part of pre-conference in Milan in September, hosted by Italian government. In there, I have a chance to young people's voice to shape their climate justice future or climate justice ambition on there. So we can work to on these issues. So how we can engage our feminist agendas or our gender justice interlinked with climate justice issues on there. So we have planned to dialogue with Bangladesh permanent representative in the United Nations, how we also can influence to the United Nations General Assembly or some side event in upcoming International Youth Day with the permanent mission in New York. And another is we are going to host a dialogue in next week with a Swedish ambassador in Bangladesh. So Sweden is the largest donor country also in the UN. So they have a common agenda to foster achieve climate justice with ecological justice and gender issues. So we want to explore with Bangladesh ambassador of Sweden. So how young people can work on these issues on climate action with the in lens with ecology and gender. So I think it's a possible opportunity to youth advocacy. Thank you, Laxman.
Thank you, Sohan. Couldn't be more excited on what you are doing and what you have been leading. So yeah, colleagues, we thank you, Jenny and Sohan, for highlighting some of the immediate opportunities and also highlighting and reminding us that we are entering into a space where some of the feminist networks, action leaders have already been actively doing some concrete work and advancing the work on gender and climate. So keeping these opportunities in mind, now that as MenEngage, if we really want to formally engage with these spaces, how should we do that and enter into these spaces? Something to keep in mind. And there seems to be quite a momentum building opportunity at the moment with the Hope coming up, and also the kind of the focus of CSW, the next CSW session, which then focus on the context of climate change and environment and DRR policies and programs, which seems a good opportunity for us to engage with to bring about the interconnections on what Katrien also presented on the interconnections of the masculinities with the climate justice as an agenda and engage with that. So and also looking into how can we connect with the ongoing feminist advocacy that's already in place. So with that, a reminder, what we wanted to do next is take an opportunity. Now you heard the overall reflections from the overall conversation that is happening within the symposium, but also on some of the immediate opportunities that we can look into contributing. And as MenEngage, we also produced a discussion paper in 2016, where we tried to make connections on how the work around transforming masculinities can connect with the agenda of gender justice. Some of our members, and especially Vedar in this case, have been leading some tools and programs development on the topic as well. So with all of this in mind, what we wanted to take a moment with all of you is to come together to reflect on what we discussed. And you saw the recommendations, because the paper that Katrien is putting together will also inform what we will do moving forward as MenEngage. So it is now the moment for you to help us on fine-tuning the next steps for the Alliance moving forward. And so for that, what we want to do is we will break you into 5 different groups, again, into smaller breakout rooms. So there will be 2 rooms for reflections, rooms for opportunities, and we will try to divide all of us. Now that we are 16, we were 20, so let's see. So maybe, yeah. And then also for the colleagues who speak and speak in Russian language, you can remain in the main room as well, so that you can also have the conversation in the language, so that if needed, you can get support from Irina for the translation. And in the groups, what we would like you to do is to actually look at, for the reflections groups, you look at what resonates to you and why. What would be the top priority for you moving forward? Because the recommendations are quite many, but if we really need to be pragmatic in terms of taking the further steps, how would you like to prioritize? What needs to be done immediately for MenEngage moving forward? Do you have anything to add from what you have been observing based on your experience from your own context that should be taken into consideration moving forward? But also then for the opportunities group to look at how prepared are we as MenEngage to engage with these opportunities? Will you be interested to be part of these initiatives, and which ones will be your immediate priority? Because we cannot engage with everything right now, and then again do a prioritization. Hope that is clear, and I would then like to, if Tamizan, if you can support us with breaking us into groups. While you do that, anything to add, Vidar and Katrien, on this? No? Okay.
Perfect.
Great. So yeah, Tamilan, if you can break us into groups and keep colleagues with R in the name in the main room, and then the colleagues in the R room. So now I'm calling it R room for our room can discuss on both the reflections as well as opportunities. And we will have 10 minutes for that, and we'll come back to do a short debrief as well. So in the groups, if you can take notes and you can send that to Virat or me or Katrien later on when you have time, that would be great. Or you can also add that in the chat box, whichever is convenient for you. Welcome back. Sorry to cut off the conversation. I can imagine how energetic the conversation would be in your rooms, and apologies to intervene. But keep up with that energy, and we will have more space for conversation moving forward. Today we have a limited time, and we have a lot of agenda to finish as well. So we can take 1-2 minutes maybe if there is anything that you would like to share that stood out for you in your respective groups. And now is the time. Or you can also type and add that in the chat box if that's more convenient for you rather than speaking. So whatever works for you. Great. Thank you, Jenny. Yeah. Anyone would like to share quick anecdotes, any thoughts that came up in your groups? And also make sure you select the language again. And even if you are in English, please select English. Katrien?
Yes, I'll quickly share from my group. We were a reflection group, and the first reflection we had was the importance to start from what we already have in MenEngage, because there are so many organizations who already have men's group and are working with them, and that we could promote having a session on climate change. You know, that you don't have to set up separate groups, but that you integrate it in just as one of the topics that you touch upon when you have a men's group. That was a first remark. And then we talked about the destructiveness and the interconnectedness of the economic systems, the capitalist neoliberal system, and hegemonic patriarchal masculinities, and how they're so deeply intertwined, and how we should really focus on the deconstruction of the economic systems that really set up the rules of the game in the world that produce all the pollutions, and that we should be really focused on that.
Thank you, Katrien. Yeah, very important. Anyone from Russian language? Anyone would like to add any thoughts that came out in your groups?
Ну, мы, собственно, обсудили, что мы поддерживаем вот предложенные инициативы, но конкретных предложений, таких, как вот были озвучены, у нас нет. Ну, просто мы поддерживаем положительно. Считаем, что эти инициативы правильные и положительные. Вот, в целом.
Okay, thank you. So, yeah, continue, if you don't mind, continue sharing the notes either in the chat box or in email to Virat, Katrien, or me, so that we can include your notes in the conversation. So we, you know, and I think, you know, it's important to sort of break down these recommendations into practical steps. So that's something that we really need to do, and also sort of make sure that what the recommendations are incorporated in a way that also resonates with the intersectional bottom-up global approach that was highlighted in the beginning, but also to bring together the different policy advocacy programs work or any other campaigns initiatives together. And how to do that structurally is important for MenEngage, so that we can build on to the work you all are doing and amplify the work you are doing together as a group, so that make sure that it is more integrated within the alliance. So for that, we'd like to share, discuss with you some ideas that we have on how to make it more structural. If we are looking at systems transformation, we need to also make sure it is systemic within MenEngage moving forward. So I would like to invite Vidar to take us through a conversation on how to structure it within MenEngage. Over to you, Vidar.
Thank you. So basically, we would like to create a global MenEngage working group for climate justice. Yeah, why. We have been talking about why a lot already. So central questions for the whole series of seminars are here. I don't think we need to go through all of them, maybe. I did actually do an update in the presentation, but you downloaded it, maybe, Laxman.
I'm using the online one.
Yeah, can you share the online one?
Then refresh so that it appears. Maybe it's because I didn't read
quite a bit.
Yeah. But you continue.
We are a group, an initiative group of some persons who are ready and starting it, and we would like to invite us all to join. And I think there are several internal needs. We need to explore these questions and these issues deeper, and develop more of knowledge and methodologies and all of that, and to support each other in that. So that's one aim. And the other aim, of course, is to act externally, and to do that together with other movements, which is crucial. And we don't need to invent the wheel. Fridays for Future and many other organizations, many times women and girl-led feminist movements for climate justice, they do amazing work, and we can learn from them, we can support them, and we can join hands with them. And we can bring the masculinity lens and our knowledge in how to engage men into that. So it's like MenEngage has great potentials in this, and possibilities, and I would say even responsibility, because there is not really any other organization, or especially not any other feminist global network that does this, or not any feminist organization that is really focusing on engaging men as part of the solution. And I think we need to step up in that. Can take the next slide. So that's the what. And then the who. So in the initiative group, we are all represented here, besides Marina Pisklakova, who unfortunately had to leave us now. But so we are an initiative group because we wanted not to just ask the question, do we want to create a working group and keep it open? But we are actually already some who are committed, and we would like to invite you and others to join. And maybe right here, we'll just give the word to each one in the initiative group to say something about why. Why do I want to be in a MenEngage working group for climate justice? And do we have Sohan with us? No, dropped out.
Looks like he's having internet issues.
Yeah, internet is weak. And Marina had to leave, unfortunately. She is part of Anna Center from Russia. She was part of writing the MenEngage discussion paper in 2016 already. She's committed, and they are doing amazing work in Russia, engaging men for care, for children, and gender equal parenting, and expanding that care to also include care for the environment and the climate. I wish she could tell with her own words why she wants to be part of this, but she is committed since a long time back. Katrien, why do you want to be part of this group?
Yes, thank you, Vidar. I think you touched already on the main reason, and that's because I think the MenEngage Alliance can really bring in so much expertise and knowledge, and have this unique perspective and knowledge and experience of working with men already on so many other topics. And it's really a unique angle. There are organizations working on gender and climate change, but to bring in the whole matter and concept of masculinities is quite a different matter, and it's absolutely crucial that men are engaged in solving the climate crisis. It's absolutely not a matter of just solving it with women, and everybody in humanity needs to be engaged in one way or another. So I think we have this unique approach, and which absolutely is an added value. And for me personally, it's a wonderful way of connecting two movements in which I am an activist, and to bring them together and to contribute with whatever knowledge I have. So it's really an honor that I can be part of this journey, and it gives me so much energy when I think about it. This has been the most wonderful project I've been working on up till now this year. This climate seminars and meeting everyone and listening to all of these speakers, it has given me so much energy. So I'm really happy that we can pursue this and establish a working group in which I hope to be very active.
Thank you, Katrien. And yeah, I guess I'm next here on the list, and I already said a lot. It's all from very, very individual, personal reasons. I have my teenage children, and they are looking at YouTube and very interested in consuming like the role models on YouTube, and I don't really see how can I prepare them for all the changes that are coming. And I want to take responsibility and find ways of that radical dreaming and radical listening to be part of the solutions, and find things that can inspire also my teenagers, and not only scaring them with climate change and how terrible everything will be, but how do we create system change. And that's on personal individual level. And on the structural level, I think there are so many amazing possibilities, and so much to gain. And if we work with men's violence against women and men's violence against nature, when we combine those two, we will achieve more and better results in both areas, because they are totally interconnected and have the same root causes. So, and to do it hand in hand with all these amazing people within Fridays for Future and Friends of the Earth and all these people who do amazing things. Yeah. And Laxman.
Yes, from the Global Secretariat side, I have been part of. It's also my own personal journey and my background when I used to be active on climate justice when I was in Nepal, looking at the disaster we were facing because of the melting of the Himalayas and the water scarcity that was coming up, and we did quite a lot of movement building around some politicizing the work on climate justice, including. So I was part of those conversations in the past. So I have been always quite interested on the issue of climate justice. But that also led to also creating opportunities for me to learn as well on making the interconnections with what I'm working now on masculinities, which is at the root cause of the climate crisis, very primarily, and the patriarchal system that Vidar was talking about, how men have been part of the problem. How can we bring the men into the equation of the solution as well? But also, rather than sort of being part of the problem, it's more important that every one of us be part of the solution. And when we talk about solving the issue of climate crisis, it's more around addressing the climate crisis or the climate inequalities that is there at the root cause and the impact that it is creating. And it's also important for me, who come from global South country, a very poor country in South Asia region, which has seen a direct impact of what climate crisis can result into. Displacement of people from the highlands, the shift in the agriculture system, the burden that it brings to especially the women who are more in the role of caretaking in the region, and it has been quite something that is close to my heart. So that's the reason why I was actively involved in this working group so far. But also looking at both personal and structural changes. But yeah, it's not only me in our team. So Jenny, if you want to add your thoughts as well on how and your interest in being part of the group, if you can.
Thank you so much. And I echo what everyone has already shared on a personal level, no? And I think I would add, we had a good conversation about this in group too, just on the incredible opportunity of coming together in a working group with various areas of expertise, no? Some of us are working in policy, some of us are doing research, some of us are implementing actual programs and strategies, and just the opportunity for the working group to become that community of practice, right? Where we continue to deepen our analysis. We were mentioning this in group 2 as a space for support as we continue to unfold on this journey of unpacking, transforming patriarchal masculinities and climate justice. So just on the benefits of a rich space where we can anchor these conversations and strategy, strategizing jointly. So I'll leave it at that.
Fantastic. So we are inviting. Yeah, let's move to the next slide, because there we can. So we are an initiative group right now.
Vidar, sorry to interrupt, but I saw that Jan had raised his hand. Maybe
okay.
you missed that, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Okay. Yes.
Well, the reason I raised my hand is that I wanted to sort of volunteer to come to the group as well. And for me, it's a multiple set of reasons. If I look at the development of agriculture in my own country, the Netherlands, and how the animal feed and fertilizer.
Oops, you muted.
Somebody muted me. Okay, I'll start again.
Yeah.
I raised my hand, so to speak, to volunteer to become a member as well, based primarily on my own developments over time. In the Netherlands, I've seen small farmers being pushed by the animal feed and the fertilizer industry to go for large scale, destroying their own country, their own land, and their animals. And I've seen the same thing happening in all the countries that I worked. And more and more I felt that it has been colonial development assistance that has been pushing this very much. I've seen it in Bangladesh, where the Green Revolution, so to speak, was like destroying the land, replacing traditional varieties that were withstanding all the opportunities, all the climate changes, coming to modern varieties. And I was 2 years ago, I was in Ethiopia, and the state minister somewhere said that, oh, but it's the FAO that pushed us in these unecological systems. You people, you white people, you forced us to go for these new methodologies. And now we have to pay the price, because now we have all the climate change coming up. And I feel we've not acknowledged sufficiently that all the development system has been a colonial model, patriarchal colonial model, to promote neoliberal capitalistic development. We're part and parcel of that. The rich people in the global south are part and parcel of that just as much, men and women, benefiting, but in different ways. And I think it's about time that we start reflecting on development assistance to stop it becoming worse, and we can stop it adding more to it. Because if you look at many of the developments happening all around the world, it's motivated by neoliberal capitalism, which is, again, as we said earlier, directly linked to the patriarchal notion of power.
Thank you, Jan. Amazing. Great. Welcome. So if we look at this slide, take the next slide, please. So we are this initiative group now, and we will form what we thought in order to make this some kind of democratic process, we would like to, whoops, back please. Maybe today we could form an interim working group. And in the interim working group, we can then jointly decide on how we will work, what we will do, the priorities and logistics, etc., and kind of create a terms of reference for the working group. And we will work in a way where we're all equals and peers. We're joining to achieve common goals. It was nice, like you did now, Jan. You jumped in and said that you want to join, and you said something about why. Maybe there are others who would like to do that as well, which is great. If you want to join and don't want to say anything, you can also just write your email address or contact details in the chat. And we will also think we will see. But one idea is to do some kind of mapping also within MenEngage, to see who are doing work in this area or who are interested, and there make some kind of broader call in the MenEngage, among the MenEngage members. And we want to do cross-movement building and co-creation with other organizations and networks who are not MenEngage members as well. And some of you who are here now are not MenEngage members, at least not yet, like Camille from Coalition for Clean Baltic, for example. So please don't feel excluded when we're talking about a MenEngage working group. It's the other way around. We really need and want to do the cross-movement building and cooperation. But I leave the floor now if there's anyone else who are interested in joining the working group, and if you want to say something about why you would like to do that, or just write your contact details in the chat. Yeah, I can't resist to read out loud what you're writing in the chat. So Camille writes, I would be interested to follow this group and be updated about progress and achievements if it's possible. Yes, of course. Great. And Aniket, you wrote your name. Yes, and your address now. I'm more inclined to learn than to contribute. Yes, and I think that will be an important part of the work as well, to really deepen and learn. And Paul, I am keenest on conceptually queering ecological masculinities, especially through the lens of queer ecologies. Happy to fold this into the MenEngage initiatives as fits best. Great, fantastic. And Stephen, you wrote, this is an area where I'm taking my research currently and also feel passionately about. So I would be interested in joining too. Great, wonderful. So can we now in this meeting, as MenEngage members and others, make some kind of, I don't know if it's a formal decision, but it's at least a decision by us here that we want to create this working group. And you can raise your hand or push the hand. Like, I don't know, how do we do this? Maybe press the button and show a hand or something, or applause or some kind of gesture. Yes. Yeah. I take this as a yes. Great. This is fantastic, and it really, it's worth celebrating. We have been since the previous global symposium in Delhi. That's where we first raised the idea around the coffee table in a break. Marina Pisklakova was there, and Wessel van den Berg from Sonke, and some others. Nikki was there as well, and we started talking about this idea. And now, several years later, in the next symposium, we decided it. So let's, celebrate that. Now Sohan comes back, so we can hear something from him as well. Hmm. Can we admit him in? I think Tamilon has to do that.
Bruno. Mhm.
Hi, Sohanor. Sohan, welcome back.
Yes, yes.
Hi. We have just decided that we will create this working group for climate justice, this global MenEngage Working Group, finally. And some of us had the possibility to share why we want to be part of that group and why we want this group to be created. So now you can say something about that as well.
Okay, thank you. So to work with MenEngage and addressing climate justice with masculinity lens, we need a separate working group. There we can create our knowledge development and sharing our ideas and actions. And we know MenEngage has a country level network and regional network. So this working group can support this regional network, guide to the regional network. So how the regional network or national network or member organization or members can work on these issues. So and also support their necessities or needs. And my vision is that this working group will be also including participation of young people, and not only young people, also needed intersectionality lens, also men, women, and also trans communities and indigenous communities, disability communities, as an inclusive working group to deliver this great agenda. So it's my vision. Thank you, Vaidar.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sohanor. Great. Thank you.
Mhm.
It's really exciting.
So, yeah, Vidal, then the question is, now that we agreed to move forward to, formalize the working group within MenEngage, one question I would have is, are you all okay with this interim group to initiate this conversation forward on your behalf, and then start what Vidar has put in the slide, to have more formal terms of reference for the group, and then start including some of those who you have shown your interest to be part of the working group, and then at some point in time reconvene to formalize the working group. In the meantime, we will also initiate the work on mapping of the within MenEngage Alliance who is doing the work on this area, so that we can include, as Sohan says, colleagues who are actively doing this work at the country level in different parts of the world, so that we can move towards becoming and formalizing our inclusive working group. So the question that I'm asking, just to be precise, is, are you okay with this interim group taking forward this for now?
And when you say interim group, who are in the interim group? We have an initiative group, and then now we have several who wanted to join. So are the ones who wanted to join now part of the interim group? Or, yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Wonderful.
You can just raise your hand to say yes, or the thumbs up.
Yeah, I think people
on the
did,
screen, or you can use the emojis, whichever is convenient, or dance on the screen so that you can show the excitement. Anything that works for you.
Great. Fantastic. In Sweden, everything stops when June is over. We have dark winters, so when July is here, everything else is stopping. So I would love us to somehow meet before end of June to take the first steps. Maybe we will. I don't think it's so easy maybe to decide on a date here and now, but we will.
Maybe we do that over the emails.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. A doodle. Yes, good idea. Fantastic. Yeah. So celebration, and then we will go into work. And you had some things you also wanted to share, Laxman, about the Ubuntu overall and what's happening now, and because we are part of the whole Ubuntu symposium.
So great. Yeah, thank you, Vidar. And thank you, colleagues. That was exciting.
Exactly. So this was the end of the 7 seminars, basically, right?
Yeah. So yeah, I'll just take a few minutes to kind of summarize what we all discussed and agreed as the next step. And I think we agreed commonly on the importance that MenEngage integrates the agenda of climate justice in our strategic plan moving forward, which is already part of the global strategic plan. And it's time that we concretely start doing things as a group, as a collective, in supporting the programs of our members, but also in policy advocacy spaces to be more proactively engaging in, but doing that in a bit more accountable way. And for MenEngage, it needs to be located within the systems change transformation agenda that the new strategic plan outlines moving forward, and that it is sort of informed from our core principles that we have laid for MenEngage itself, meaning human right-based intersectional feminist approach, transformation, feminism, and bottom-up and decolonization, so that we can include these elements into the work. It is important that we raise this agenda as means as a responsibility to be engaged in being part of the solution. And then, we heard during the symposium very clearly that the engagement has to be more constructive, structured, and accountable and meaningful. And then also MenEngage being the largest social change network. That's what our theory of change now have started calling us as, a social change network. And if we really want to mean that in practice, we cannot ignore the biggest agenda and the threat to humanity and planet that is standing in front. And we need to definitely look into that. And then also look at how can we strategically bring both personal interest as well as institutional interest together, so that we can amplify and realize the systems change process. And also how can we join hands with different movements, and especially the gender and climate change, feminist movement, and the youth movement that is now leading this work, so that we act in solidarity and be as allies to them and meaningfully add value to what they are already doing, being mindful that we are entering into a space where it is already being led by other groups, so that it doesn't mean just we engaging into this space and occupying this space, but rather meaningfully include our added value into the conversation, into the policy and transformative agenda that is there. And also moving forward to, be more inclusive in our own approach, so that we can actually work to realize the local, that was one of the recommendations from the Katrien's paper, local approach in the work we are doing, and then make sure that we include people from the places or parts of the world or countries that are affected as well, so that our politics revolves around the needs of the people who are disproportionately impacted, and also to look at how can we challenge the gender binary conversation when it comes to the climate justice conversation, because usually it revolves around very, very gender binary language, and we need to deconstruct that language as well. And then we collectively agreed that we will start the process with now the interim group in place to formalize the working group, and the actions that was listed and that are shared will be the first task for this interim group to work towards. And then we will meet towards the end of the June to again have the formal process forward and take forward this agenda within MenEngage. Yay, exciting. And really looking forward, colleagues, to working with you. And as MenEngage, we always work from bottom-up approach, meaning we build onto the interest of our members rather than we, as Global Secretariat, deciding what needs to be done. Even though it was my personal interest, I wouldn't work in a way that I would tell the members that this is my interest and hence it should be your interest, but it's the other way around, that we make a balanced approach on implementing and acting in ways that align with our principle rather than a top-down model. So really excited to reach this space and really looking forward to the next step. And thank you, Vidar, Katrien, Marina, Sohan, for all the work that you have actually. And also this is a moment to recognize a colleague from Sonke, Wessel, who also was very crucial in pushing this agenda within the MenEngage Alliance, and also Nikki Vandaga, who is also a MenEngage Steering Committee member, for leading our way and leading us all the way to this space. And also special thanks to Robin for all the support you have been providing throughout in planning, preparing, and organizing these sessions. Yeah, I can go on, but I do want to recognize the time. I see Vidar, you unmuted. Any last point you want to say?
Yeah, thank you, Irina, for all your interpretation. And thank you, Tamilan, for really making all this possible. It's amazing. You're totally invisible, but totally present. It's,
yeah. I was going to thank them towards the end. Thank you.
Mm.
Great. So, so one of the tasks for me is also to sort of share with you. So this is a beginning. So even though we are saying this as the final session of the series, this is to be continued. So it is not the end of the conversation. This is the beginning. You can find all the agenda in this link webpage, menengage.org/symposium. And you can find more information there. And if you want to attend any of the sessions that I talked about or are listed in the agenda section of this page, if you click on each of these items, then it will open up to give you the more detailed information and the link where you can register. And once you register, you will get a personalized links, and using that link, you can join the session. And then also all the sessions of this climate series as well as other previous sessions are recorded and are uploaded in the MenEngage YouTube channel. So feel free to see the YouTube channel of MenEngage and listen to any of the conversations happening so far around the symposium. Vidar, see your hand up.
Yes, I just wanted to ask, at the final closing day, will there be summaries of the symposium as well, and will this in somehow be mentioned there as well, and will there be what was it called in Delhi? There was a plan of action.
So yeah, we will not do a full summary of the whole 8 months, but we will definitely present the declaration and call for action that is coming together. And it will be inclusive of climate justice agenda. There is a whole section on climate justice. We will also share about the knowledge products that are coming up, and that will include one on climate justice. And also we will share other information as are relevant. Yeah, definitely that will happen. So thank you all for joining us and contributing so far in this conversation and leading us all the way where we are right now. And we look forward to continuously partnering and working with you moving forward so that we can join hands, become stronger together, and amplify work that we all are doing in our own spaces, but also make it more structural in a way it amplifies the systems change agenda in the work we are doing in an accountable way. So thank you all, everyone. You all have the good rest of the day, good evening, good afternoon, and good morning or afternoon, wherever you are around the world. Thank you, colleagues, and we will be in touch, definitely. And stay safe.
Thank you. Thank you.